that our grants and our work overall, but really focus on underserved and communities, including but not limited to youth and young adults, low-wage workers, women in non-traditional occupations, veterans and returning service members, justice-involved youth and adults, tribal communities, and rural communities. Across all of our grant programs, we at the Department of focused on ensuring that our investments lead to good, high-quality jobs and are designed with diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in mind. Our goal is to ensure that these resources and programs get to the folks on the ground who need it the most, and importantly, that they lead to real outcomes in our communities and in the lives of working people. We are also focused on broadening awareness of DOL grant programs so that organizations and partners of all sizes and types in all communities, cities, and towns know about the various programs, understand how they can determine whether they're eligible to apply, and how to stay connected for more information. That's why we're hosting this webinar today, and I encourage you to also stay connected at dol.gov/grants. Thank you for your engagement, partnership, and shared commitment to making life better for working people, building a more just economy. With that, we'll begin by hearing from the amazing Angela Hanks at the Employment and Training Administration of DOL.
Thank you so much, Madam Deputy Secretary. So I'm Angela Hanks. I'm the Acting Assistant Secretary in the Employment and Training Administration here at the Department of Labor. I'm really thrilled to be here today, and I'm excited that you'll be able to hear from many of my ETA colleagues about the grant opportunities that exist within our agency. So I'll just say very quickly before I turn to my colleagues, we are so excited that so many people are interested in our grants program, and we're even more excited for what current and future grantees will be doing to help workers across the country find good jobs. Before my colleagues dive into the specifics of each ETA grant, I'd like to open a bit by talking about why these grants are so important and how you can be best positioned to receive them. Here at ETA, we administer a myriad of workforce programs, making it easier for individuals to acquire in-demand skills and credentials and connect workers with quality jobs while helping employers meet their workforce demand. We make strategic investments through our competitive grants to support marginalized and underrepresented populations in overcoming systemic barriers to participating in training programs that will help them build in-demand skills and put them on a career pathway that leads to quality jobs and sustainable wages. And we are doing this by putting equity at the center of all of our workforce development programs. You will see a clear focus on equity, job quality, and worker empowerment across all of our grant programs being published this spring. And as you prepare for our open funding opportunities, think about the partners you will need to reach and provide services to workers from underrepresented communities, and think about the employer and labor partners that you will need to ensure that individuals are trained and hired into quality jobs. Foundational to our grant programs are meaningful partnerships with the public workforce system, education and human service programs, labor and industry partners, and community-based organizations. And we expect applicants funded through our grants to have well-established partnerships in place prior to the grant award. You'll also see an emphasis on work-based learning strategies and registered apprenticeship, where individuals learn new skills while they earn a paycheck. Our research shows promising results for individuals who complete these programs, both in their ability to stick with the training and in their career mobility they experience afterward. And there are other ways that you can position yourselves for applying for our grants. So first, understanding what your local labor market data tells you about in-demand jobs, particularly those that are or lead to quality jobs. Establish or deepen your partnerships with local employers who have those quality in-demand jobs. We especially recommend doing this in the context of a sector strategy, which means working with employers as a group to meet their collective workforce development needs. And it means deepening the relationships between the local workforce development board and community colleges or other institutions of higher education. Many ETA grants will require or encourage you to demonstrate some partnership in some form. You should also identify and work with local community-based organizations that have a finger on the pulse of the community. This is particularly important with respect to serving the needs of marginalized and underrepresented populations and seeking equitable outcomes in grants. And as you apply for funding, we also encourage you to think about the end in mind, meaning that you think about how you will sustain what you undertake with your grant funds. And above all, We want to make sure that you develop these programs with equity squarely at the front of your plans. At ETA, equity is the core of everything we do, and these grants are vital to ensuring an equitable economic recovery for all workers across the country. So thank you so much again for your interest in our grant programs. We're very excited to see what our grantees will do. And I'm really delighted to be able to turn it over to my colleague, Robin Furnkas, who is going to walk through a few of the grants that we have coming online very soon. So I'll turn it to Robin.
Great, thanks, Angela. I'm Robin Furnkas, and I'm the Deputy Administrator for our Office of Workforce Investment. We have several grant opportunities coming up that can help expand the important work that you and your organizations are doing to build a skilled workforce. So many of these grant programs are awarded on an annual basis, and the springtime is a very active time for ETA for us to publish these grants. Youth Build is one of these programs that we do award on an annual basis. Through this program, grant recipients provide a pre-apprenticeship program model that encompasses education, occupational skills training, leadership development, and high-quality post-program placement opportunities to Opportunity Youth. Youth Build is a community-based alternative education program for youth between the ages of 16 and 24 who have left high school prior to graduation and who also have other risk factors, including being an adjudicated youth, youth aging out of foster care, youth with disabilities, migrant farm worker youth, youth experiencing housing instability, or other disadvantaged youth populations. The eligible applicants for these grants are public or private nonprofit agencies. These organizations include rural, urban, or Native American and tribal entities that have previously served Opportunity Youth either through a Youth Build or other similar grant program. We did already publish our Youth Build funding announcement in November of 2021, and it closed last month. We will be announcing the grant awards later this spring, and we will fund approximately 75 projects across the country. Soon we will be announcing the availability of approximately $45 million in grant funds for the second round of the Strengthening Community Colleges training grants. The funding is designed to build the capacity of community colleges to help people in marginalized and underrepresented populations overcome their barriers to career and technical education programs that they need to in order to secure quality jobs. This grant program, as Angela was saying, will increase the capacity and responsiveness of our community colleges to close equity gaps in addressing skill development needs of employers and workers in support of the administration's vision to build community college capacity for in-demand skills training through strategic partnerships between industry, education, and the workforce system. To increase access to educational and economic opportunities, particularly for individuals from historically underrepresented and marginalized populations, the department will give special consideration to applications submitted by lead applicants that are historically Black colleges and universities, tribal colleges or universities, and other minority serving institutions. Community colleges may apply for these grants as a single institution or as part of a consortium of institutions. The grants awarded will focus on accelerated learning strategies that support skill development, rapid reskilling, and employment through targeted industry sectors and career pathway approaches. Also being announced this spring is our Growth Opportunities Grant for Reentry Youth. The purpose of this grant program is to introduce and prepare justice-involved youth and young adults for the world of work through placement into paid work experiences. In addition to paid work experiences, the program encompasses occupational education in-demand industries, leadership development, a mentorship component, and post-program placement into employment and/or education. These grants focus on youth and young adults most impacted by and associated with community violence, particularly in areas of concentrated crime and poverty, as well as communities that have recently experienced significant unrest. Through these grants, we intend to reach justice-involved youth and young adults, communities in areas of concentrated crime and poverty, as well as communities that have recently experienced this significant unrest. The eligible applicants for these grants are Native American tribal governments, county, city, or township governments, independent school districts, and nonprofit entities. We will be awarding an estimated $60 million to approximately 22 grantees later this spring. Our Pathway Home reentry program for adults is about to be released, and this will announce the availability of $55 million for a third round of the Pathway Home grants. These grants prepare incarcerated adults transitioning from custody into their local labor markets by providing occupational training aligned with their career and educational goals, and fund services such as case management, legal assistance, and transportation that support participants' participation and success. The goals of the grant include providing individuals incarcerated in state correctional facilities or local or county jails with workforce services prior to their release, and to continue these services after their release by transitioning the participants into reentry programs in the communities to which they will return. These grants are building on the findings of the Linking Employment Activities Pre-Release Pilots, we referred to them as LEAP, and our implementation study, which have shown potential for breaking the cycle of recidivism by linking participants to the workforce system early while still in jail, and then immediately upon reentry to the community, ensuring that people transitioning from custody into reentry are prepared to meet the needs of their local labor market and with the skills valued by employers. These grants serve justice-involved individuals and incarcerated individuals. The eligible applicants include public and state-controlled institutions of higher education, for-profit organizations, state, county, city, or township governments, Native American tribal governments, nonprofits, and faith-based organizations. The Workforce Pathways for Youth Demonstration Grants support national out-of-school time, or OST, organizations that serve historically underserved and marginalized youth ages 14 to 21. These grants place an emphasis on age-appropriate workforce readiness programming to expand job training and workforce pathways for youth, including soft skill development, career exploration, job readiness and certification, summer jobs, year-round job opportunities, and apprenticeships. Funding will also support partnership between workforce boards, youth-serving organizations, and specifically those out-of-school time nonprofits with local affiliate networks. A total of $10 million will be awarded to approximately 5 grantees for this grant program. Shifting a little bit here, we're looking for announcing approximately $69 million for the Indian and Native American employment and training programs that are authorized under Section 166 of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. As we stated before, some of our grants are authorized or that we announce on an annual basis, and some of them are more infrequent than that. And this is one of those that we do more infrequently. So this is the year that we're going to be announcing these grants. These grants support employment and training activities for American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian individuals in order to develop more fully the academic, occupational, and literacy skills of such individuals, make these individuals more competitive in the workforce, and equip them with entrepreneurial skills necessary for successful self-employment, and to promote the economic and social development of Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian communities in accordance with the goals and values of such communities. These grant awards support employment and training activities to develop the participants' academic, occupational, and literacy skills, and to prepare them to be competitive in the workforce and equip them with entrepreneurial skills necessary for successful self-employment. These grants serve Native communities and eligible applicants, including tribes and Indian organization and tribal consortiums. One of the final grants that I'm going to tell you about today is the Workforce Opportunity for Rural Communities. We will announce this grant later this spring. It's the fourth round of funding for this program, and we will be awarding approximately $34 million to some 30 grantees. The work initiative, as we call it for short, is designed to facilitate the alignment of workforce development efforts with existing economic development strategies in rural communities. The work initiative provides grant funds to enable impacted communities to develop local and regional workforce development solutions aligned with existing economic development strategies and community partnerships to promote new, sustainable job opportunities and long-term economic vitality. These grants provide enhanced training and support activities to dislocated workers, new entrants in the workforce, and incumbent workers who live and work in the Appalachian and Delta regions. Eligible applicants for these grants include nonprofits, state, county, city, special district or township governments, public and private institutions of higher education, and Native American tribal organizations and independent school districts. You can learn more about these grant programs through our DOL Grants webpage and through directing any specific questions you have to our ogm@dol.gov mailbox. And now I'd like to invite my colleague, Megan Baird from the Office of Apprenticeship, to tell you about our apprenticeship investments. Megan?
Thanks, Robin, and hi, everybody. As Robin mentioned, I'm with the Office of Apprenticeship, and I am excited to share that we have recently issued a new competitive grant opportunity totaling $113 million for the Apprenticeship Building America Grant Program, and it just published yesterday. The Apprenticeship Building America Grant Program will support, through a coordinated national investment strategy, a strengthened and modernized registered apprenticeship system that is centered on equity and advances the administration's goals and priorities for an inclusive economic recovery by connecting more Americans to good jobs and careers, especially in high growth and in-demand industries. And this grant program builds on the department's previous and ongoing efforts to expand and modernize registered apprenticeship through expanding the number of programs and apprentices, diversifying the industries that utilize registered apprenticeship, and increasing access to and completion of registered apprenticeship programs, particularly for underrepresented populations and underserved communities. And under this single funding opportunity announcement, applicants can apply for one of four categories. Category 1 is for state apprenticeship system building and modernization grants. Category 2 is for the expansion of registered apprenticeship program opportunities for youth. Category 3 is ensuring equitable registered apprenticeship pathways through pre-apprenticeship and through equity partnerships. And category 4 is registered apprenticeship hubs. And this grant program can serve a broad range of individuals that are 16 years of age and older. And the department is particularly interested in projects that propose to serve underrepresented populations, underserved communities, unemployed workers, and underemployed workers. Eligible applicants vary by grant category, so we definitely encourage you to refer to the funding opportunity announcement, but broadly under the solicitation, it can include states, cities, municipalities, workforce development entities, community-based organizations, industry groups and associations, labor and joint labor management partnerships, workforce and apprenticeship intermediaries, and educational institutions. And again, please refer to the funding opportunity announcement for eligible applicants for each of the 4 categories that I had outlined. And this funding opportunity is now live. It published yesterday. It closes April 25th. And to support applicants in applying for this funding opportunity, we will also be publishing a frequently asked questions document, as well as a prospective applicants webinar recording. Those will be coming soon and published no later than March 15th at the link in the funding opportunity announcement. For more information on this funding opportunity and how to apply, I encourage you to go to dol.gov/grants. And the point of contact for this funding opportunity is also identified in that posting as well. And with that, I thank you all for your time today, and I'm going to turn it over to Kate, I believe.
Thank you very much. Next, we will hear from the Bureau of International Labor Affairs.
Thank you so much. My name is Thea Lee, Deputy Undersecretary for International Labor Affairs. So at ILAB, the International Labor Affairs Bureau, our mission is to protect workers' rights around the world, to enforce labor commitments among trading partners, promote racial and gender equity, and combat international child labor, forced labor, and human trafficking. We use policy engagement, research and reporting, and funding of technical assistance and cooperation programming around the world. We've carried out work in almost 100 countries, and we are currently managing a portfolio of approximately 80 projects with activities in almost 50 countries. Every year we make 8 to 10 new grant awards using both our regular appropriation funding as well as grant funding allocated to ILAB under the United States-Mexico-Canada Trade Agreement, the USMCA. Our grant opportunities are usually for projects of around $2 to $10 million, and they generally run over a period of 4 to 5 years. ILAB's competitive grants are open to both U.S. and non-U.S. entities, to nonprofit organizations, including faith-based and community-based organizations, are also eligible to apply, as are for-profit organizations, public and private institutions of higher education, and public international organizations. In fiscal year 2022, ILAB Technical Assistance Programming will continue to focus on promoting worker voice and empowerment, combating child labor and forced labor, promoting gender and racial equity, protecting vulnerable populations, strengthening labor law enforcement, and improving working conditions and accountability in global supply chains. We will have grant opportunities all over the world, including in Mexico and Central America, where we have additional programming and resources. To support applicants in applying for these funding opportunities, we will also be hosting an ILAB webinar specifically focused on our international grant making for potential grant applicants in late March, and we hope many of you will be able to join that webinar as well. Thank you so much for your attention, and thanks for being here today.
Next, we will hear from the Women's Bureau.
Thanks, Kate. Hi, everyone. I'm Wendy Chun-Hoon. I serve as the Director of the Women's Bureau. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am really excited to tell you a little bit about the Women's Bureau and our grants programs. So this year we are issuing 2 grants. The first is our longstanding Women in Apprenticeship in Non-Traditional Occupations grant, or WANTO as we call it. And the second is our newer Fostering Access, Rights, and Equity, or FAIR grant. But first, so that you all know a little bit about the Women's Bureau, we are almost 102 years old. We are the only federal agency mandated by Congress to represent the needs and interests of working women. We have regional offices around the country and a national policy staff that really works together to identify and spotlight trends, and all with a laser focus on how programs and policy design need to attend to the most marginalized workers. We are committed to advancing economic and employment outcomes for working women and economic security for their families by focusing on strategies that both improve wages and working conditions in sectors of the economy where women tend to be concentrated, which on the whole are some of the lowest paying jobs, and do everything we can to get more women into higher paying jobs, which tend to be dominated by men. And so to that end, our grants are really specific about achieving equity. They've seeded some of the most successful programs around the country with 2 goals in mind. Specifically for WANTO, getting more women into pipelines for good jobs that pay high wages, and specifically for FAIR, ensuring that women know their rights on the job and that they can avail themselves of any income support for which they're qualified. And both of these grants programs also focus on strategies that combat sexual harassment and discrimination in the workplace. The WANTO grant program is primarily designed to provide technical assistance to employers and labor unions to encourage employment of women, especially women of color, in apprenticeable occupations and non-traditional occupations. And in the latest round of grants in FY21, we awarded in September of last year. The priority was given to organizations that have served as an equity intermediary in the past, and those who propose to focus on expanding outreach and recruitment to historically underrepresented communities. In coordination with the Employment Training Administration, Reba Daniel from our team at the Women's Bureau administers the grant. And the funding opportunity for this next round will be available later this spring, summer. Our FAIR grant program, the second one, is designed to implement the provisions of the Executive Order 13985, focused on racial and gender and LGBTQ and other forms of equity, that really is a whole of government approach, and importantly, also for the Department of Labor in identifying and addressing barriers to more equitable access to public benefits and services and protections. So FAIR grantees are launching and expanding projects to assist underserved and marginalized women to ensure they know their workplace rights and ensure that they have access to all of the benefits available to them. In the latest round, FY21, the FAIR grant was awarded to 5 states and Guam through governors who then, many of them, dispersed funds to community intermediaries. And Pat Humflett from our team administers this grant. The funding opportunity, again, is going to be available this spring, summer. So for more information on both the WANTO and the FAIR grant programs and how to apply, again, you can visit dol.gov/grants and stay connected with us. Thank you so much. Handing it back to you, Kate.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Next, we're going to hear from our Veterans Employment and Training Service.
Hello, I'm Maria Timikel, Director of Grants and Training at the Veterans Employment and Training Service. In VETS, we have a competitive grant for veterans who are at risk of or experiencing homelessness. The Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program, or HVRP, focuses exclusively on veteran employment. Our grant program provides services to veterans, justice-involved veterans, female veterans, and veterans with children who have an other than dishonorable discharge. This year's funding opportunity announcement was published on January 12th in grants.gov and closes on March 2nd. We expect to award a total of $14 million to grants across the country. We are encouraging applicants to propose strategies to address historical inequities, provide equitable access, and achieve quality job placements for our veterans. We welcome entities who are new to the HVRP grant, organizations that serve historically marginalized veterans, and organizations that will serve communities where there is currently no HVRP grant. All entities are eligible to apply except organizations with a 501c6 designation or an individual person. We are particularly looking for applicants that can provide superior services to a diverse veteran population in helping them find quality jobs. Our grantees have achieved success across the country, and I'll leave you with this great story. In 2020, we had a female veteran, Jessica, mother of 3. She was in a toxic relationship that she wanted to leave. She connected with our grantee in North Carolina, Veteran Services of the Carolinas. Working with our grantee, they developed a career development plan. They worked together to achieve its goals. With other support service organizations, our grantee coordinated housing, tuition reimbursement, the purchase of uniforms, and the payment of examination fees. Because of the wraparound services our grantee provided, Jessica established a new household for her and her sons, returned to school, and ultimately received her phlebotomy certification. In Jessica's own words, she says, "To start over with nothing was the scariest thing I have ever done in my life. By having someone to problem solve with me and be there each step, providing guidance and resources, encouraged and empowered me into changing my life. In 5 months, I have accomplished goals I have been dreaming about for years. If I had known about these housing and employment services with the Veteran Services of the Carolinas were available to veterans, I would have left my situation years ago." Thank you, and please consider applying for an HVRP grant this year, found at grants.gov. If you have any questions about HVRP, you can email us at ogm@dol.gov. And now I'll pass it along to Ursula at MSHA.
Thank you very much. Hello, I'm Ursula Frazier. I'm the grants manager with Educational Policy Development at the Mine Safety and Health Administration. I would like to provide you with some background information on our grants first and why we initiated the grants and our focus on the FY22 funding opportunity announcement. The Brookwood-Sago Mine Safety Grant Program was named in remembrance of 13 miners who died in a disaster at the number 5 mine in Brookwood, Alabama in 2001, and 12 miners who died after an explosion at the Sago mine in Tallsmanville, West Virginia in 2006. MSHA awards funds under this program to establish and implement education and training programs or to create training materials and programs for all miners to better identify, avoid, and prevent unsafe working conditions at our nation mines. MSHA recognizes that effective training, including training tools, is a key to providing miners a voice in a safe and healthy workplace. From the beginning of this program, grantees such as Alabama's Belleville State Community College demonstrated this purpose by creating a video to show how to use and operate a refuge chamber, a new safety equipment for mine emergency and underground coal mines. A refuge chamber is a piece of equipment that allows miners to shelter in place safely. While this program was developed to train underground coal miners, the mining industry used this video to train underground metal and non-metal miners. Another grantee, the University of Arizona, created a virtual reality open source gaming program named Harry's Hard Choices. The focus of the grant was to enhance training for non-English and other low literacy learners through a competency and capability-based training program and hazard recognition and worker safety. The final grantee, Hutchinson Community College, adapted the Gillette College Industry Safety Training Center's Blind Spot virtual reality training program for mobile equipment using Oculus goggles for surface mines in Kansas. Gillette, the MSHA Wyoming State grantee, developed a virtual mine tour for standalone blind spot awareness training for 10 pieces of commonly used mobile equipment in coal mines, including a haul truck and a drag line. The Hutchinson program also added several pieces of the mobile equipment. MSHA is looking for Brookwood-Sago grantees that will continue to provide effective training and training tools for miners. These grants will assist miners, the most precious resource in the mining industry, to identify and prevent unsafe working conditions and exercise their rights to have a safe and healthy workplace. MSHA expects to publish the funding opportunity announcement in the spring. Thank you so much for your interest in our grants program.
Thank you. Now we will hear from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration.
Good afternoon. My name is John Lott, and I'm the Special Assistant to the Assistant Secretary at the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, otherwise known as OSHA. OSHA was created by the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, and our mission is to ensure safe and healthful working conditions for the nation's workers by setting and enforcing workplace safety standards and providing training, outreach, education, and assistance. In furtherance of that mission, I'm pleased to be here today to talk about two funding opportunities OSHA will have available this spring. The American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 Workplace Safety and Health Training on Infectious Diseases, including COVID-19 grants, and the fiscal year 2022 Susan Harwood Training Grants. The Susan Harwood Training Grant Program assists nonprofit organizations so that they can develop training materials and provide free training to workers and employers. Our goal is to reach workers who have a critical need to access occupational safety and health training, those who are at risk for injuries, illnesses, and fatalities, and who have historically had limited access to training, particularly disadvantaged, underserved, and vulnerable workers. This includes low-income workers, workers of color, youth, low literacy, limited English speaking, and other hard-to-reach workers in high-hazard industries. We're proud to say that over the past 10 years, Harwood grantees have trained over 850,000 workers through this program. The first grant I'll talk about is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. So the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 provided OSHA with funding for Susan Harwood training grants that addresses workplace safety and health related to infectious diseases, including COVID-19. This funding opportunity provides additional resources to support free workplace safety and health training on infectious diseases, including COVID-19, for at-risk workers and employers. The grant award may not exceed $160,000 for the 12-month performance period, and organizations may be awarded one workplace safety and health training on infectious diseases grant, in addition to receiving an award later this fiscal year for one of the three fiscal year 2022 Susan Harwood training grants, which I will speak more about now. 3 funding opportunities are available as part of the fiscal year 2022 Susan Harwood Training Grant Program. While each grant opportunity supports occupational safety and health training, they have different scopes and vary in specific requirements. Organizations may apply for more than one grant using these 3 funding opportunities. However, they will be limited to receiving only one of the following grants: targeted topic training, training and educational materials development, or capacity building pilot or developmental grant awards. As stated previously, organizations may apply for multiple funding opportunities in fiscal year 2022 and may be awarded a workplace safety and health training on infectious disease grant, as well as one of those 3 grants that I just mentioned. So for more information on this grant program, please visit osha.gov/Harwood grants. On that website, you'll find a couple key resources: a program overview that goes into a little bit more detail than what I just laid out, some FAQs, as well as examples of past grantees and materials that they produced. And additionally, we have another opportunity next Tuesday, March 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern. OSHA will be hosting a live webinar to explain the program in more detail and offer best practices for organizations thinking of preparing an application. During the webinar, you will hear some lessons learned from current grantees, as well as any pitfalls that you may want to avoid in your application. To register for the webinar, please visit osha.gov/Harwood webinar. For any additional questions about the grant program, you can contact our Harwood Grants Program Coordinator at harwoodgrants@dol.gov or 847-725-7805. Thank you so much for your interest in OSHA's grant opportunities and for your participation in today's important webinar. I'll now turn things over to Kate for the next presentation.
Thank you very much, John. Next, we're going to hear from our Office of Disability Employment Policy.
Thank you so much, Kate. My name is Chris Button. I'm a policy supervisor at DOL's Office of Disability Employment Policy, or ODEP. This year, ODEP will fund one cooperative agreement for the Leadership for the Employment and Economic Advancement of Individuals with Disabilities initiative, which we call the LEAD Center. An award will be made for approximately $2 million per year to operate the LEAD Center, for a total of about $8 million to fund one cooperative agreement for a 4-year period of performance. This is a recompetition of an existing LEAD Center project, and the entity selected will continue and build upon the work of this existing center, which is a Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, Policy Development Center. The focus of the work will include advancing economic self-sufficiency for individuals with disabilities, including individuals from historically marginalized communities, creating career pathways for individuals with disabilities, and improving data reporting through WIOA programs regarding participation and outcomes for individuals with disabilities. Eligible applicants include nonprofit organizations, for-profit organizations, with demonstrated knowledge, experience, capacity, and established relationships in workforce development and disability. We're really excited to continue and expand this work. We plan to publish the FOA this spring and refer you to the funding opportunity announcement for additional information. And with that, back to you, Kate.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, we're going to hear, before we dive into some FAQs and questions, we're going to hear from our Office of the Assistant Secretary for Policy.
Thanks so much, Kate. Hi all, my name is Alex Hurdle Fernandez, and I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Research and Evaluation in our Policy Office at the Department of Labor. I'm pleased to be here to announce a $5 million cooperative agreement that will be going out to fund an academic institution or a network of academic institutions sponsored by our department's Chief Evaluation Office. This cooperative agreement will support unemployment insurance or the UI system by conducting UI-related research, gathering and analyzing UI program data, teaching and training students on UI-related issues, and engaging in outreach and partnerships with state unemployment insurance agencies, community and worker organizations, and the U.S. Department of Labor. A cross-cutting theme of this UI Center's research, teaching, outreach, and partnerships will be advancing equity for populations of workers who have been previously underserved by the UI system. This includes, but is not limited to, workers of color, low-paid workers, workers with low levels of formal education, workers with disabilities, and workers with limited English language proficiency. Another goal of this cooperative agreement funding opportunity is to diversify the community of researchers that are studying unemployment insurance, considering the diversity of researchers and of academic institutions. This grant will advance our understanding of the UI system by producing policy-relevant research focused on underserved population, bolstering the technical capacity of state agencies and the Department of Labor, and connecting cutting-edge research findings with worker organizations, community organizations, and other members of the public. This funding opportunity is currently forecasted, and we will be releasing a full funding opportunity announcement in the coming months. For more information on this funding forecast and how to apply, you can go to dol.gov/grants and stay tuned for the full funding announcement. Thank you again for your interest in the department's grant making, and back to you, Kate.
Thank you very much, Alex. Next, we're going to hear, so that was the universe of DOL grants this year, and hopefully people got a flavor for what they do. And if you walk away with anything, our goal is that they empower workers morning, noon, and night. So now we're going to hear some frequently asked questions from our Office of Grants Management, and then we'll open it up if we have time for other questions, but really encourage folks to put questions in the chat, and we can make sure to get to them over email if we don't have time today.
Thanks, Kate. My name is Laura Watson, and I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Employment and Training Administration. I was previously the Chief Grant Officer for ETA. And I'm joined today with Eric Lukenhaus, who is the Division Chief for Discretionary Federal Assistance and has an abundance of experience with grant competitions. We're going to answer a few frequently asked questions that we've received over time, and then we'll see if we have extra time. And the first question is, how do I apply? Well, I could talk for hours on how to apply for a grant, but I'll give you a few quick tips. First, a critical step is for your organization to register with the System for Award Management, also known as SAM.gov. All direct recipients, contracts, and federal assistance must be registered in the system. Second, I would recommend that your organization registers with grants.gov. Grants.gov is the portal that we use to receive electronic grant applications. In addition, grants.gov has webinars and training tips, and you can sign up for email notifications to know when our funding opportunities are posted. And lastly, I would look for a funding opportunity that fits your organization. That means look for an opportunity that you have the expertise in, that the dollar amount of the awards fit your organization, and that you are interested in pursuing. You should read that FOA thoroughly several times. You should highlight the mandatory requirements. Some of the key areas that you'll need to develop are your application narrative, your budget and your budget narrative, and you would want to make sure those are within the dollar amounts of the FOA. And then you would want to make sure you have the partnerships to be able to complete the program design that you are describing. And lastly, you would follow the instructions in the FOA. The FOA will clearly give you lots of things to do, and you must follow the FOA. Now I'll hand it over to Eric for the next question.
Okay, thanks, Laura. So the next question is, how do I know if my organization is eligible for this grant? So in grants.gov, for each one of the funding opportunities, there will be a synopsis page. And that synopsis page will generally explain the eligibility requirements for the funding opportunity. But oftentimes it will also say, something like, see the full text of the funding opportunity to determine specific eligibility requirements. So it is really important to go and not just stop there at the synopsis page, but go into the funding opportunity, or what we call funding opportunity announcement of FOA. Look in there and see very specifically what the requirements are related to the project. And then after reading the eligibility section, if you have further questions on eligibility, each one of these funding opportunity announcements has a contact person listed farther back in the funding opportunity. So that's the best person to reach out to. There will be an email address in there, and they can answer any technical questions you might have.
Great information, Eric. The next question are, what are some of the common pitfalls? I will tell you, I think the number one pitfall is waiting until 5 or 10 minutes before the FOA closes to log into grants.gov and start submitting your application. You never know when you're going to have a computer glitch or when the internet's going to be slow. And just because you started your application submission before the due time, if you finish your submission and your application comes in at 4:02 p.m. and the FOA closed at 4:00 p.m., you will be disqualified. So please, please give yourself plenty of time to submit your application. Another common pitfall is the expiration of your SAM registration. Remember, that was your number one tip, to get your organization registered with SAM. You have to do this every year, renew the registration, and grants.gov has a validation check and goes to SAM to see if you are a registered organization. So keep your registration current. Another similar pitfall is your organization has a grants.gov logon and people who submit your application, but they happen to be on leave the day the FOA closes. So and then you don't have the password and you don't have the authority to submit the application. Make sure that on the day you are going to submit your application, the person with the passwords, the authority to submit, is there available to submit your application. And lastly, I would say human error is also a pitfall. Check your application that you've submitted. Make sure all the documents that are required have been uploaded. Many times we get a letter from an organization. I had my budget prepared, I just forgot to upload it. If it's not included in your submission, then you may be ineligible if it's a mandatory document. So double, triple check the documents that you have uploaded with your submission in grants.gov to ensure all mandatory pieces of your application are included.
Okay, the next question is, do I need a letter from my representative? So each funding opportunity can be different. So the best place to look for this information is the specific funding opportunity announcement. The FOA will give you a guide of what documents that are required. It is best to focus on submitting documents specified in the funding opportunity because those are the documents that we'll be looking for to review. Now, if there is a requirement for a letter from a representative or some other document, some other letter from an individual, it will clearly say so in the funding opportunity. And I also wanted to mention that if there is a required letter or document, it is very important to include it with the actual grant application package and not send it separately to the department. Laura?
Thanks, Eric. We have the question, if I'm not ready to apply this year, can I apply in future years? Well, that depends on the type of funding announcement. You heard from Robin that many of the ETA programs run from year to year, such as Youth Build or our reentry projects. So yes, you can take an FOA this year and look at the requirements and start to make those partnerships, start to think about your budget, and you will have a good head start for next year. But please be advised, each year the FOA will change and the requirements will be tweaked. So make sure you are working off the current year FOA when you submit your application. Eric closes out here.
Okay, so where can I go to learn more? Are there trainings or other webinars coming up? So to learn more, right there on your slide there, dol.gov/grants is a great resource. Also, of course, we have mentioned a few different times about grants.gov. That is a critical portal that will have that funding opportunity announcement and those various other items that Laura mentioned. In many of the FOAs, it will mention a prospective applicant webinar that will be pre-recorded or live for you to watch. Also, towards the end of each FOA, you'll find various links to other resources to help you develop your application and make it as competitive as possible. So we'll turn it over to Kate.
Thank you very much, Laura and Eric. If folks keep putting questions in the chat, we will get to them over email if we didn't get to them live. Here on this slide, we have contact information for each of the agencies that you heard give a narrative overview about their grant programs today. I also know that some folks asked whether this will be recorded and shared, and the answer is yes. It will be recorded and posted on dol.gov/grants, where you will find upcoming webinars that our colleagues from OSHA or iLab have mentioned to get deep dives into the different programs that you learned about today. So I just want to say thank you so much for your interest, for your partnership, for your interest and engagement with us as we try to expand access and opportunity to these federal investments. And big thanks to all my colleagues who joined me today to talk about DOL grant programs. Please stay connected at dol.gov/grants, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your days.